started, it's too far behind, but I think we have everybody that is going to be here. If you did not sign in, do not grab an agenda, do not grab a packet, please do so, or we can pass it around to you. Very quick packet, do not be alarmed. Mostly things for reference that you can keep as well, and then we may run through the meeting, but I want everybody to have it in. The agenda that was sent out Monday is the same, should be the same here. I believe if I changed it, but I believe it should be the same thing. And I will entertain a motion to approve that, so we get started by Carmen.
Second.
Second, Lane. All those in favor, please. I'm gonna say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks so much. There's also on the top of the packet that you have, minutes from the January meeting, should be about 4 pages. It's right back. About 4 pages. 1 page of it is just public comment, which is fantastic. You weren't at that meeting, but you had it showing who the district lead that came and spoke and just attended and heard thoughts from that, but should have gotten the minutes already as well. Any amendments to the minutes? Yeah.
I gave some changes to the names of some of the visitors.
Okay.
Okay, you submitted those. Did we have time to read that or can we make a motion?
These were sent out last weekend, Monday, so if you didn't read them before then, but you want to scan it now, we'll get some just to say. Yeah. Yeah, you say those were, you already
Yeah, I gave
sent
them.
them, okay.
Yes, it. Name correct.
Okay. Everybody, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the amendments that we said.
I have one other amendment.
Yes, ma'am.
Under George Jones, I don't know that it matters, but he's the executive director of Partners for Environmental Justice. He's just,
Right.
okay, Myra, he should not, and he should spell. Yeah.
Any other amendments to the minutes? Their motion to approve. Tom, second by Leon. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
Will they be approved with?
Yes.
Approved it.
Yes. Okay, moving through. We have a new face in the room. So we're not at the January meeting, you may see 2 new faces. So I'll ask, Charlotte, if you don't mind, if you yourself and Allison, as well, just to let us know who you are, what demographic you're representing. There.
I'm LaShara Owens. I'm in District B, and I am on elected treasurer. Hi, I'm Allison. I'm District D. I am representing youth as well as New Raleigh residents. I'm a current student at NC State University and interested in liaison with student concerns as well as New Raleigh.
I'll let everyone introduce themselves individually after we get done. So we make it to this meeting. Thank you both again for being here and for committing to serve on this board and their meetings. Appreciate your time. Oh, that's good. Perfect. So, Councilmember Jones is here. So last meeting, we added a section on the agenda for any important updates from council meetings, community information, et cetera. So if you have anything you want to present and speak to us now, and ask questions. And she, as you don't know, also she's our liaison for fleet council. So, works closely with us, suggested what we're doing, any advice we need from council and vice versa as well.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Christina Jones. I'm district council for District B. Thank you to the new board members for being here. Really excited to have you join the group. I'm not going to take up a ton of time, but I just want to give you the biggest thing. We reinstated CAC. What does that mean? What does it mean? It's like, oh, what are we here for? All right. The difference between what we have learned, and I'm not going to say for all of them, what I've learned over the last 4 years, after being disbanded and working with and creating the community engagement department and then creating the community engagement board, is that they're two separate things. They're two separate things. Community engagement board, you guys are doing amazing work, not only in the public comment section, but you're going to be, the way I see you, you're kind of working with all the departments. You're like, hey, stormwater, how can I help you? Hey, this department, how can I help you? CACs, while that may have been the intention of council when they disbanded us to say this is going to reinstate it, as we have begun to create it, it's not what CACs were. And that was that local connection, that immediate connection to residents. What we did by reinstating CACs, we talked about it at our retreat. So if you get a second, go ahead and look back at that. Those are things that we discussed. We discussed community center access space, which was already it was already defined. The mistake that I made on there was saying we were monthly, because we can't offer that, and I've already since spoken to staff. So I'm going to make a follow-up motion to alleviate that. I know that was, I think I scared Taisha. I'm surprised that she didn't go into labor at that point. And now it's but I will correct that. We are going to give them access to Zoom. We cannot do it on Teams because that's a city account. And while you guys can have that access because you're city sanctioned, this is the CACs, we said, well, we'll subsidize the Zoom account for you so that you can continue to grow. Because there is that connection to neighborhoods that we don't currently have. And while we can learn to build it in the future, I think that intermediate step is really just reactivating the CACs and letting them continue to do the work that they never stopped doing. So CACs never went away. But now we're saying, we recognize the integral part that you played in the past and we want you to be part of the future. So that's the last part, the last piece of that motion was activating our Raleigh Neighborhood College and our Citizen Leadership Academy. I've been if you guys haven't taken that class, please sign up for it. They do it 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall, both classes. It's an amazing intro to city. It teaches you about every department, teaches you how to be a leader. And that last part of the motion was saying, hey, CACs, I'd love for you to integrate with that so that the leaders that we build of the future will have a foundation to build from. We'll know what's happening in the city. That's just the start of that. But as we decide, is it best, are our CACs and what they do best, housing or community engagement or housing neighborhoods? That's a discussion that's ongoing. It was important for us to make this motion so that we can clearly say to you, this is off your plate. The community engagement board, this is now off your plate. Because this is not something I want you to continue doing the amazing work that you're doing and know that we're going to handle it. We're going to work with CACs outside and make sure that's as strong as it was before, if not better. But I don't want that to hinder the work that you guys are already doing and bog you down. So that's the big thing. I do want to thank Tom for coming out to our committee meeting of last month, the Safe and Vibrant committee meetings. I love being able to see you guys. I know I met with Troy yesterday. So please, I want to see you and know, oh my God, you are engaging in the community. But continue doing that. Continue doing the work you are doing and starting new initiatives. And that was the point of this motion for CAC. So I'd love to take any questions if you have any, but I wanted to give you that update specifically. So you weren't like, oh my God, are we going to be, nothing's happening to you guys. So you guys are here.
Good question.
Yes.
What is going to take 2 months for the city to get down to in reference to CAC structure?
There were a few things that we talked about, and it was where the money's gonna come from for covering the Zoom account. I offered in that motion that if we can't find it, to just pull it from contingency funds from the city, from city council. So I think they're looking at that financial wise, and we have to begin to look into building that program that I asked them to build. That's not gonna be overnight. That's something that we have to integrate into those classes. So I have ongoing meetings. I'm meeting with our CAC chair tomorrow, so that we can begin to coordinate what that looks like with CACs as well as how to bring in the city. So there are different elements. The CACs, as of the 6 that are active currently, you guys already have access. to those communities. And nothing changes with that. Hopefully we will be able to add some time, some months on there, but we are still working with our parks department on making sure that those ones that were, if you looked at the, retreat, they grew the list of available community centers. And so we want to make sure that those are ready to go. And I know that with that motion, they kind of like, wait, we gotta make sure. So that's what's taking those 2 months, just to figure out your patients on maternity leave. So there's that transition of knowledge. So we're giving them enough space to make sure that everything's right.
I do want to say thank you because I asked for clarity at the last meeting and I believe that gave it to, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, and so I'm still a little confused about our role versus the CAC, because I read the article in the Observer after the meeting, and I was like, I'm new, so what does that mean for here? So what is this? You can try to look at the person when they should.
This is like, in this half of our country, like, what on earth are you trying to do? Totally get it, I totally get it. And to give you just a brief history of this, when CACs were disbanded 4 years ago, we were in limbo for a while. They created a task force, which created the community engagement department, at which point then this board was created. So there was a lot of, that was 3 years with the same council, and there wasn't clarity given as to what was expected. So they said, oh, this is going to reinstate CAC, this is going to bring back CAC. Then we tried it out. We were like, all right, we're going to try it. But it wasn't something that we were able to do, not because it's a big topic. CACs, there's 40 years of history before this moment. And with a board that had taken on, plus they've taken on public comments and helping people ensure that you have 3 minutes and getting all that work to do. There were time limits to speak that the board worked on to make sure that they got the 3 minutes. So all of that was outside CACs. So there was this constant battle between CACs saying, hey, when we're being brought back, and the board going, well, the council told us to do this. There was that confusion. So in the midst of that, council decided, let's just take CACs, we will work with that. Because it doesn't seem like the right format for it. You guys are doing great work in other areas. So continue growing your relationships with each department. Each department needs community engagement. It's not like this sits on its own. The way I see what you guys do is a foundation of everything you do. So whether it's traffic or whether it's housing or whatnot, you guys are the foundation of all of it. And I need to make sure that we are including the community in everything we do. CACs they have a different role. They help clarify things on rezonings, and they do that on their own. That's not something that you guys are doing. So I wanted to make that clarifying point so that you can continue to work independently with each department and help amplify their message, while CACs can focus more on the groundwork of neighborhoods specifically. So that doesn't mean that what I just said is clarity, because we're still. I'm giving you the history of it to say we needed to separate it. I don't know what this is gonna look like, but we just knew it wasn't working. It wasn't working the way it was. So I don't want to hinder anything that you guys are doing. But to take this off your plate, I'm saying make something cool, make something that amazing that I know you can, and just make sure you're incorporating each department in it.
Yeah, I've got a certain question, but really you have to look at it. CACs are grassroots community organization. We're a board at point, and that's a big difference right there. Then you go from there. But I've been that whole continuum that you talk about. You kind of know that this was not the CAC, but the confusion that we had between the public and city council didn't help that in. But anyway, my question is that I noticed at the city council meeting that each council persons give a report. Yeah, and I'd like to suggest that in your report, that if you could mention the CEB meeting and so it kind of reminds them that they have any meetings in different locations, and also possibly invite the council person on that district or remind them that they are invited. And so that's an opportunity for to get the CEB board name out to that meeting and let them know that we're moving around to different communities.
Yeah.
And I noticed that was not, so if you could do that, and I don't know if anybody had a problem with that or not, but when we're trying to promote and you understand what we do, that might be another opportunity.
I think that's a fabulous idea, and, so what he's referring to in every city council meeting, we get an option, each council can give an update, their own personal updates. Since I am the liaison for this board, I'd be honored to every meeting and say, hey, our next community engagement board meeting is gonna be at this location from this time to this time. If there's any topics that you guys would like me to amplify, please just shoot them my way, but I'll make sure to include that in every one of my reports going forward. Thank you for the idea.
And I just want to offer for information for our new members, we do actually have a work plan in the sense that it was put in front of council and approved. So we do have guidance for the activities that we're doing. We're not just kind of like on board and trying things. But we do have documentation in terms of where we intend to be by June. I think it's awesome.
And just a quick note, as we're on this topic, I didn't know if you knew that there was a celebrity here, but one of us was interviewed on, I think it was ABC.
And WRAL.
And I got to see him say, does anybody want to guess what Dr. Lane said? That's his phrase, like he's calling to work in the city, and you're gonna guess?
Transparent.
Trust and transparency. So if you want to look it up in context with this, I thought you did a great job bringing that phrase in to those 10 seconds.
I've learned that news people know what the sound like.
Yeah, big sound.
And so when you talk to people, you gotta talk and sound like, you don't know which one you're gonna grab.
Yeah.
So
Gotta talk
you
it out.
talk to people for 5 to 10 minutes, but the only thing.
There it is.
10 seconds.
From a marketing and comms executive, I can tell you, just off the one.
I'm like, my man's. That's government training.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for letting me speak. I will be here and definitely be here next month as well. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
We're gonna push forward with public comment. I see one other face. Would you like to give a comment or just sit in and hang out with us?
You know, kind of still like educate myself, to see how you operate. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Just got an education.
Without any other public comment, we move into standing committee updates, ratings. I think we'll have a lot from all of them to discuss. I'll start with equity. I know Ashley, we should all send her positive vibes right now because she's taking fury. So hopefully, or has taken it today. So hopefully she's done well, but Trey and Jeff, if there's anything extra to share.
Yeah,
I always first check.
I mean, I'm not yet. So we actually don't have any updates. We already finalized the location for the rest of the year. So we are good at this moment.
We did actually receive from Dale the PowerPoint presentation from the retreat that spoke about the community support funds. So we're moving.
Policy.
Yes, if you turn to the page in your packet, sorry, it's like automatic for me standing up, I can see that one. If you turn to the page at the top of your packet, it says January 31st. So if you click forward like 4 or 5 pages. Page 5, thanks y'all. So just a couple things, as you scroll down, I tried to highlight the items. So every regular meeting, the policy standing committee meets after that. And right now, our biggest project is that tracker for public comment. So the spreadsheet-based tool that we're building to try to track the public comments that we receive. We presented it to y'all last time in the January meeting, and we heard a couple items of feedback, and I just want to go over what we discussed. So you can see a highlight there, discuss requests from the January CEB regular meeting. The first one, our first template was approved, so that's awesome. And so the action after y'all voted to approve our email template, that was the one that said, hey, thanks for leaving a public comment. Here's what, we really appreciate it. Once y'all approved that template, we sent that out. It was our board chair, Stacy, whoever sent those emails out using that template. What we've written in the procedure is that in the future, it'll usually be the vice chair who does it, but if the vice chair is absent at the meeting, it can be the chair. So you can flip to the next page. On the next page, you see we discussed an idea that was shared at the January CEB meeting. That was that CEB, our board, could send an email to everyone at the city, letting them know that we're starting to implement this tracker. And our reasoning for that is because in the tracker, if we get a public comment that we need to refer out to another department, the idea was, hey, why don't we let them know because they might be hearing from us. But what we discussed in the policy meeting was we're in the MVP stage, and MVP being a throwback to that Mickey Byrne term of minimum viable product, that startup mode. So rather than emailing everyone, what we'd like to do is go to one of the management team meetings. After city council meetings, there's what's called a management team meeting where the managers who are going to have to put council's votes into action meet. And it's a closed meeting, it's not a public meeting, but we can request the opportunity to present at the beginning of that meeting and share, hey, this is happening. And so rather than it being an email, one of us can just go to that meeting. So we'd like to ask staff to help us set that up so we can go and share it. And that'll be a way for us to share that message. So I just want to pause here. Any questions or feedback about that strategy? Fantastic. The next idea is, there was the idea shared last meeting that we could create a library or a directory of who we contact or build an FAQ page with all the answers to questions. And this would do two things: one, efficiency, so we're not answering the same question five ways, and two, reporting, so that eventually we could let council know about trends. Basically, what we said again is we're in the MVP stage. This is a great idea, but let us test this for the first year, and then we can always come back to this, because both for efficiency and for reporting, it won't be hard to look back after a year. So basically, we're asking for your permission to continue with the core mission in VP style rather than trying on some of these. Any questions or comments about that? Awesome. The next one is the idea that the sign-in sheet needs to be updated. If you remember from the last meeting, our sign-in sheet didn't have clear places for those who shared public comments to list their name and their email. And so our board chair took care of that right away, worked with the staff, and we got a new sign-in sheet. So that one is done. So the public comment tracker was updated after our January meeting. We were able to get through almost all the comments and send emails, which is awesome. We only meet for 90 minutes. So we made a mark in the comment tracker where we left off, and we will continue to review those next meetings. Since we didn't have a great deal of public comment this meeting, I think in our next meeting, it'll be pretty easy for us to make sure we've gotten through all the comments. And so what I can propose is that in March, we come back to you and show you what the tracker looks like and see if you have any additional feedback. I think we were anticipating that we would have more public comments because last meeting we had so many, but I think it'll be
Send the tracker on the next page.
and the tracker is on the next page. So if you want to see what it looks like. Yeah. So if you want to see what it looks like, you can see how we're continuing to take notes there. Something I do want to bring up and see if y'all have any ideas. As I'm updating the tracker, I'm adding in a description there of what their public comment is. And I'm wondering, I don't want to, if somebody leaves a heartfelt public comment with us, I feel weird being like, they talked about trees. Like, I feel weird kind of summarizing what their topic was, but I think we need something there so that we can really like see what it was. So I'm doing my best with those, but as you review these in the future, if you ever have any feedback about how those are being labeled, that could be something that we talk about. How we label this.
And not to go down a rabbit hole, there's a possibility this ties into something that we'll talk about in a little while. But there's value in collecting that data based on what we've heard and there are some other stuff. So I actually need towards actually doing that so that you have aggregate things to show.
That way we can show over time. Okay, so that's
It's the same zone, we're separate times, right? So we talked about the part there, part there, part there, part there. And now we know we've got 4 hit points to say,
Yeah.
there's a problem with the park.
Yeah.
Here you go, and, make it known it's going just to them, it's just internal staff only, you're not in public portal, like, might help multiply the process, putting a little more pressure. But again, I can dig into some of myself.
Yeah, because again, this tracker is internal. We're not intending for this to be the public tool. The joke I keep sharing is it's not the Domino's pizza tracker where someone else can check where their public comment is in the process. It's for us to track and make sure that we're communicating. And so I love that feedback, Tom. Thank you. And so to that point, because it's internal, if we just label it with the general topic, I think that's okay. We're not mislabeling someone's information. Hopefully their full comment is captured in our minute because they emailed it to Trey or whoever our secretary is when that comment has been shared.
To the point you just made about it's not public, it is still public record.
Great.
Even though if somebody asks for it, it's not gonna be like on the website, but if someone asks.
Thank you for that, Peter, because you're right, it's all publicly available. Yeah.
And I think as long as we code it as part of the learning, right, this idea of looking at, theming it and looking at the amplitude or the intensity of words that we're, sorry, researcher language, apologies. But like in that way, that general description actually works a little bit better to sort of capture the significance and sort of do that. And then the only other request that I would have is to help me figure out how to along in the process as vice chair. Not that I didn't know what was going on, like all of that makes sense to me. It's just now, where's the acrobatics of getting comfortable to make sure that we're working.
I did not pay Jeff to ask that question, but can I Vanna White you to the procedure? Where our vice chair is in the process. So this is the crux of what I wanted to talk to you about today. This is the main thing I wanted to talk to you about. So I gave you an update on how we're experimenting with this tracker to track public comment. This is the procedure written out. Now, you've seen this before, you've been to our past meetings, apologies, Allison, brand new. But if you notice, there's like a grayer color on some of the text, that's the text that has changed. So would you like me to be quiet for a moment so we can all read through this? Yes, okay. Quiet for a second. So you can read through.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the procedure that we've written out. You can see it refers to the templates that you can see on the additional pages. We did add templates. It was, I think, template number 6. We just want to make sure that the vice chair has access to templates as they're helpful. But we started to go a bit down, to just Tom's phrase a second ago, we started to go a bit down the rabbit hole where I felt like we were creating too many templates. So I think we're in the point where we really want to stop, move forward with the procedure and these templates. And then we'd love to reevaluate again in a couple months. Like, let's try to use these and see how it works. So I guess the request I would have is for a motion to approve this procedure and
Any comments on those first, any of the amendments that were made, the rules? Template 1, 6, 2, 5, 2.
I mean, I don't feel like it's necessary for me to review these and offer edits or suggestions. I think we need to work with the and so on. It's good. My only question would be, was the mechanism in place for a timing perspective, right? So this is not an automation sequence where it's a 30-day marking day. So is there something reminder in the tracking machine, or is there something that will trigger a response, like a snooze option that says you need to go back and do this? Like, what's the I'm just curious about how that process works.
Yeah, great question. So if you look right now, we are tracking when the request was made and then days since last contact.
Okay.
So, here's the date that we received the comment. So what we're gonna do is every time we go in and meet as a policy committee, we're gonna update this information. That way you can quickly glance and see, when was this comment made? When's the last time we talked to them? That's the important information. To Tom's question, there's nothing automatic. So it's not like this tracker has the power to send out emails. All it does is have the power to kind of glare at us and be like, hey, people haven't heard from you in 40 days. And again, your policy standing committee is looking at this in each of their meetings. So that's how it's getting updated. And as you saw in the procedure, we are recommending to the vice chair what emails need to be sent out. But if it's something that we feel like the whole group needs to discuss, then we ask the chair to add something onto the agenda.
Yeah, just, one thing we heard back from the community surveys, that they don't feel they've been heard and been taken. So when you do this kind of tracker, when you look at all the types of comments we get, we want to determine how they will be addressed. what kind of a response you'll send to different ones. Some may not even deal with what we have any authority to deal with, but we want to recognize we heard them and that it, or something that needs to be referred. But this time thing is important to us because that's another thing that people don't feel whether we get back, it responded to in a timely manner. So this helps a little bit with that, but it also helps us keep, and I think this might just be a benefit for our board, but it might be something that staff or government can use that they don't already have. Because if they're getting complaints like we got in a lot of our surveys, that people don't get back to them or they don't felt they're heard. So anyway, I think by us piloting this type of thing, I don't know if there's another one out there like it, but by us piloting it, we can tell what works and what doesn't.
And I think what's really cool, just to give a shout out to the policy standing committee, is they have really focused on the mission and not on the tech. It's a pretty low tech solution, but it's a high focus on mission. The purpose is to track the comments and pay attention to how long it takes us to reply back. And then to create some communication templates so that communication can happen. Eventually, I can see adding all kinds of technology layers onto this to make it more effective, but I feel like we're getting the foundation of it first.
Yeah, I guess there's probably nothing there in staff you can tell us, but I'm assuming that if we say 60 days, email that on day 63, there's nothing, it's not like you have to have your minutes and your dates for announcement of all the board meetings and stuff like that. Since we're doing this internally, if it goes on day 64 instead of day 60, there's no demerit or, there's no clause that says we have to stay within.
There's no rule that we respond to public comment at all.
That's right. So I mean, right. So we're painting it along the way and saying, we're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna do it. We'll see how it works. Okay, great.
Yeah, so I think it would be positive for our committee to have a motion to approve this procedure and template as presented as part of our experiment with the public comment tracker, just so we have y'all sign up on it. I would just say that as the policy standing committee chair, I would request that from the board before we close our.
Motion.
Yeah.
Was that the motion?
Motion, yes.
So your motion is to approve the procedure and templates as presented for the policy committee to use as their public comment tracker.
Correct. That's 100% below. Yep.
There's a second.
Making it sound well with the
Second by Leon. All those in favor, please audibly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Oh, I didn't ask for any discussion, but we already had it. That is unanimously approved.
Awesome, thanks y'all. I will go back through the tracker and add more general description labels before we meet next. And we'll give you a report on the tracker again next week.
Great work, guys. That's a lot. It was good. It's awesome.
Very much, thank you. Anything else policy? Outreach.
Speaking of a lot, here we go. So, thank you for the update that all of the dates have been filled. So we can work forward now. That was part of our meeting discussion, the announcement process. So we can now move forward with that and things for the hard copy components. And do that, to make that with this second kind of resolve something that came out of our last meeting. A big chunk of our committee meeting last week was around a platform called Portico, and it was attended by the Be Heard Durham folks who have rolled out this plan on their end about a year ago, or a year and a half, and then other members of staff who have, since that we have brought this to the attention of these our team, have shown some interest. So we had, I think, roughly 14 attendees across the board on this call, including the folks from Be Heard Durham. So Be Heard Durham walked us through their process. I don't think we've gotten the presentation from them yet. I can follow back up with that so you guys can see it. It's a nice presentation to talk through it. They also played us some audio files and some stuff from the data that they've been collecting in their listening sessions. Talked to us about how they deploy their listening sessions, what the process looked like. It was incredibly transparent. They were basically like, well, here's the playbook. This is what we did, and this is what's worked so far. And this is the stages that we're at. A lot of what they talked about were the groups that they approached initially, and how they set those approaches up. And then the process of how they started collecting data and collecting information for that. This is where this company, Cortico, comes into play. So Cortico is a platform that so two things. One, is not completely stuck to an online capacity only. In fact, it's far more offline than anything else. Cortico's process is hosting meetings, listening sessions with individuals in the community, groups of 6 to 8. We can always move these numbers around down the road. They sit, they listen, they record all the data, they bring it back, and it drops it into the Cortico platform, and all the recordings of everything that's occurred. You can then tag things such as parks. They did one where they started hearing a lot of things about street names. They started creating lists of street names that people were referring to, and audio around that saying, I can't get on a sidewalk, or we have this problem or that problem. So they spent a good half hour talking to us about how they made that work to date. So Cortico, I had a separate call with the platform itself to talk about how they work, what that cost process looks like, and what the engagement process would look like. Since then, so that is available inside of this book here. The booklet, there's a little breakdown on pricing. And then there is also a little, which you read your own discretion, a new conversation platform, just a little descriptive one sheet on what Cortico does. Overall, Durham is very pleased with the progress that they've made there. They've also, there are a couple other cities as well that are being used in it, and they were able to provide us with a little more data on that too. So Nadia and team approached the city for budget for next year, which we would have, which was our normal request for budget, plus budget on top, implement this. Now, before I say implement this, the implement this part is not entirely on the shoulders of this board. However, we would be the spearhead for this. And around us and around inside different departments, they're all looking at that too, going, this would be very cool. The example of your tracker sheet is exactly in that similar capacity where over time you're collecting these components. So there are some working parts and roving parts that happen with this. We do sessions. We talked about how we could potentially take these with the community engagement van and set up little listening sessions there, just listen to people talk, and you build scopes of things and stuff like that. Inside the Cortico outlining, pricing outline, it talks about things like that. So it talks about things like workshops. Workshops are for us and for staff, for the people that need to engage with the platform and learn about that. So it's a talk process. The city of Durham has somebody in the back end that does a little bit of data work and collection. They are not a data scientist. It's not required. Portico is about to release an AI component to this as well, which is in conjunction with MIT. So MIT is helping them develop this. It's an internal development process. It uses a very little bit of call to ChatGPT, but otherwise the governance and everything else is inside of Cortico itself. So the security and concerns about stuff are completely dropped down now because the content is there. Not if you went on ChatGPT and typed in, community engagement board Raleigh and their data, it would say we don't have any. Versus, oh yeah, we can store it, and here's everything you want to hear. So it all lives in that kind of spot. That will automate that process of tagging things and being able to assign them much faster. And then the other thing we walk through is the portal. So Durham has external portals that you can go to on the site, and you can click on various subjects and read the details about it, listen to little sound bites. People are allowed to provide their name or provide a pseudonym. That's fine. It also gives you the name of the location that this was held at. So whether it was a community center or a church or things like that. So there's a map of where these conversations have been had. And how they align to the greater composite of data. The idea then being you can then move public, so for the city, is it just behind the purpose for now so that staff and everybody can accumulate this data and look at it? And then externally facing, what does that look like? Durham was able to move a little faster than that we might be able to, but, they didn't have any significant setbacks from the city when they talked about rolling this over. So it will have some engagement from our board. The outreach committee would likely be a component of it, but the next steps in the plan here is to continue to get interest from city, make sure it's moving forward, get to that budgeting process. But then I'll start developing out what this might look like on our side of it. So when the light turns green and the check gets cut, which when she saw the numbers, she said, we can have this conversation very, very candidly now, because this is not a $50,000 thing. We would be able to find out, it would be a next year fiscal year, more launch project. So we'll probably want to discuss what happens in the interim in terms of listening sessions. So we don't just wait for it to really show up. We can have a separate conversation there. But it was all very positive. We're very interested in it. Like I said, there was a ton of information. The meeting was recorded. Dale, I don't know if there's a way that we could share that recording more widely with the boards. You can watch it and listen. It's only about 45 minutes. But you'll also get an idea of who from staff attended it, because it's varying departments across the city. So this is where we are today with it. We're going to progress forward a little bit more here on the committee side. Nadia has requested that I set up a call with the person that I'm at with Portico so that they can have that conversation, is that I start backing out, right? All I've kind of done is introduced you to it, hyped you up, got you where you need to be. Now I back up and let the adults in the room do the stuff, and then they can bring back the kids when they're ready. So that was the majority of our meeting. Leon, if you have anything you'd like to share on it, I know you were pretty engaged in that meeting, listening, and had some great feedback before it started. So I'd love for you to share anything you want to share as well.
What impressed me was they did a talking session in New York City. They had a talking session, and what they were gearing to mostly was to those who are underserved, in other words, the minority communities in the city. And it was very, very informative in that it broke it down. And the fact that there's only less than 10 people makes it more digestible as far as what the results will be. So in that sense, it was very good. It broke it down. It said, okay, this department can handle this, or that department, once they did the analysis. And it was excellent. It was really good. I was very impressed with it.
It's like a 2 minute, you get to hear it. It's a 2-minute, 56-second sound bite. I wish we had it play here. That's okay, but you can hear it inside the thing. It's a breakdown of segments of recordings that they got from their various listening sessions. It will make the hair stand up on you a little bit. It was a very interesting, I want to say emotionally charging, but to hear the voices and listen to what they were talking about and the problems that they were addressing. They were very acute. It's almost like they knew you were genuinely listening. You were going to come back and basically out of it. And they let it all hang out. But it was all very constructive, and everything is transcribed. So the whole thing is there, but you can tag affordable housing as a tag. And every time that comes up, it automatically populates and locks up. And all of a sudden it says there are 46 comments in this district or this chunk alone that are simply talking about that. These people are talking about the fact that they have no access to sidewalks, or the sidewalks that do exist are absolutely decrepit. Somebody can't use a wheelchair. This is a problem. We need to address it. So, and the person who spoke about it, then now it's on record. So here it is. So anyway, so that's that. You can review again the documentation. I'm sure we'll have another update for you in March. In the meantime, if there's any questions you want to ask about it, I'm happy to answer what I can.
And let me add to that, the fact that there are only 8 people, around 8 people at the meeting, they have a better feeling that they would be heard than being in an audience of 100.
Yeah, that was the one thing that they got back from it was, because I did talk about volume of meetings for this, and they said, well, you can do that. We're not saying it's set in stone, but what we're finding as we go out and do these things in this between Porto and folks in Beaker, they said they're getting better because people feel like I'm here to talk and you're going to listen versus having to go through 80 people to collect quick sound bites and not really accumulate what you. So there's some balance there that we need to figure out procedure.
Yes. Yeah, my question was on the budget. Because in reading some of this, I wasn't sure we're trying to determine whether that budgeting is from funds given to this board or the city. I'm not sure we really define what the funds are going to be used for, it's given to this board. But I know that we review this opportunity where we have a chance to make recommendations to city council or staff to do this, and then maybe be tolerant. So I'm not sure, this gives me the opportunity to say, if we looked at our budget and define what that budget is used for, but if it's not really that, then it looks like we'll be making some recommendation in some.
So Nadia asked me to provide her with this sheet, this quarter bill pricing one, and the conversation was to hold this on as an addition to what we would have. So our budget for this year, next year, the kind of things we have for. This is an additional component that's strapped onto it that is geared towards the implementation of this project. But would not use certain funds that would be used for anything else that we would have as a board or our budget.
So if that limits us, if we're using something for our budget, as opposed to making a recommendation to city council or staff to find the money.
So I think what's gonna happen is that, and Dale, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but going to ask for an additional $10,000 for this program to get piloted out and run and go, builds into the larger thing of when the city, when these other departments really want to dial in and jump, they're now gonna have to figure that part out for them in terms of getting capital for that. But that the 10 grand that we would be provided to pilot this would be that as part of the community engagement department budget that we would then use for it. And then if it goes forward, city council board after that year, it could be discussed who takes over the cost. But like in any kind of thing else, sometimes you gotta put up a little bit to find out where you're gonna get and then hatch that out a year later.
I just think as a new committee, we need to understand budgeting a little bit more, how recommendations are made. Because we might be missing something, because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't feel comfortable if I know how to direct the ask.
Yeah.
If it should go to city council, if it should go to staff, staff may tell us what they think, just when it gets to city council, and when they tell staff what they want to do, it's a different direction. So I don't kind of look at guidance coming or comments coming from staff or others, or maybe that's the whole story.
Right, yeah.
That's why I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll double check with Nadia on this. So I believe, in order to pay for this technology, our office is gonna do what's called a supplemental request. So the budget and management added to our budget, to our department's budget, because other city departments want to use this as well. And so I don't think.
So in short, it would be the community engagement board purchasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Responsible for the software, but it's not coming from our budget. It's
Right.
almost like getting a grant.
Yeah.
Okay, yes,
But it will be our responsibility to make that happen.
Understand. That's what I want to do.
Better.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And are we anticipating this FY24, like it's gonna hit, or like this fiscal?
Most likely it'll probably be FY 25. So,
Okay.
June 31st is FY 25 starts, I believe.
Yeah.
July 1st.
July.
And just as somebody who is literally doing this shit by hand right now, with my dissertation and field work, like what this offers as a qualitative research expert is amazing. This is stuff that you would spend hours, cleaning up and doing all of that. And I think it opens up a really important conversation in relationship to the quality of experience that people have and how that constructs what the problems we face can be a really unique window into potential solutions.
Amber? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Carmen is having
Yeah.
her corner, and I missed her.
So this is probably an apples and oranges question, but one of the things that you talked about was, I guess I'm concerned about identification of people.
Right.
As part of this.
It's not a requirement. If people want to have their name, they can, right? So it's like public comment. If you go public comment city, you give your name, right? In this instance, you can either provide your name because maybe you're asking certain things and you want them to see that this is coming from you, or you could be Bob. And that's it. But that's identified at the beginning. Would you like us to use your name in this process, or would you prefer to use a pseudonym of which you can either give us one, or we will just assign one to you, and that will be it. So it's at the discretion of the individual. We follow that guidance, and whatever guidance they provide, that's what we go with. But it's no like, if you do this, you have to you get your name, how you do into public comment. This is if you want it, great. If you don't, we'll just say you're somebody else. Don't worry about it. The location of where the comments are made will still pop up, but nobody knows. There's no minutes from that meeting. There's nothing like that. It's an information session, so there'll be no sign-ins to track back to or anything like that. Reporting.
And the reason I'm concerned is because there is a meeting next week that the police department is asking people to participate in a community camera
Right.
thing. And I'm sure you all heard there was a murder on Coos Road last week. And that's the house right behind my house. And so we showed up wanting to look at our camera. And that is a concern to me in terms of where does that information get housed and how it gets used, and because of public knowledge, how does that come back on the person who makes the comment or concern? So
This could be completely anonymous in that capacity. And I share your concern there because downtown, we're kind of hearing about that right now. DRA is trying to roll out a decision network that uses private cameras from different businesses to collect. And there's a lot of concern around that, and they haven't really addressed it. The company back to haven't addressed that well yet, so they're gonna really have to go back and do that. Because one, business illegitimate knows going to be a cost to them, and two, it's gray how that access is. So this is built entirely to be secure and anonymous for anybody who participates. And it would come with, in the beginning, they do mention, they say, thanks for attending this meeting, you have the option, one or the other. And once you document that option, that's it. There's no exposure, there's no video recording unless you request it, but that video recording would need to be used or housed. It's all about audio and transcription. And so that was one of the big, or two safety questions we asked. One, that, and two, if you introduce AI, is this a built-in thing, or are you doing call-outs? If you're doing call-outs, we're not interested. If you're building it internally, which they are with MIT, I feel a little better now because MIT is going to house, they manage that. Yeah, so there's a full data protection that swings around. So, yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, I just, I was nerding out on some of the charts that they use. So like this chart that shows the folks who contributed to this conversation and the topics and then the timestamps definitely didn't exist when I did my dissertation, right? I was just thinking about the power of having a graphic for that, for public comment. So
Yes.
have they expanded this so that if you pay this, you can then use the tool in other spaces? I mean, public comment would not be limited to 10 people, but the power of being able to see after a session.
Yes, so they have two things. They have their suggested, this is how we roll it out, this is how the workshops are built. But then it's very clear that there's flexibility amongst how other places might use that. So their suggestion is for the most quality, the best data you can get, your small groups. However, this can live, it could be literally tied into public comment at city council meetings to capture all that information, dump it into a separate database, map all of it. At the end of the quarter, you can see how much is mapped in public comment, what was talked about, what was responded to, all that kind of stuff wrapped all through. And then again, that could be back end only, or it can be provided as a front end tool, but that won't be our decision, right? That's the decision of council and everybody else. We just know that it's a possibility. If you want it, I would suggest everybody go look at the Beaver Jordan website. I will also tell you, insider baseball knowledge. I'm working with the town of Cary and affordable housing right now with my marketing agency Brasco on building this for affordable housing. And they are using Job City and another Civic IO website to collect information along the way and share it widely and publicly with constituents. They're taking out all the breaks. And so this is happening around us. Durham's got it. Cary's close. and then us. So it's happening in our neighbors, at our neighbor cities. I don't see why we should not be able to participate in the same capacity.
Amber?
Just a quick logistical clarification on the budget timeline. So when does the request needs to be officially made to be within the timeline for reviewing the next?
So the request, I think we've already made the request. We've already requested it, put it in the supplemental, we've already put in a supplemental budget request. I'll let you all know when we get the feedback, from the city manager's office as to if it was accepted or not.
When is the usual deadline, just so I'm educated on that?
I'll get you an answer on that. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I think, yeah, let me get you, I know this one was, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, but I'll get you a concrete answer.
Can you repeat the question? I think I can answer. Can you just repeat?
Yeah, the timeline for, like, when are y'all considering the budget request maybe?
Awesome. So we will begin budget presentations and work sessions on February 19th. Those will be, that's not what I would do. We'll have weekly or monthly sessions from February. By the middle of May is when we get the proposed budget. So any budget notes that we would need to make would have to be prior to that. So I would say
Prior to May,
prior to the middle of May.
not
Yeah,
prior to February.
right. Prior to the middle of May. I don't have the specific dates for that.
But for supplemental request, wasn't there a different date for that? I think there was,
I don't even know what supplemental requests are, so, I just know that the final budget that we'll see the adopt, or not the adopted, but the proposed budget will be the middle of May, so whatever. There will be dates that are different, and maybe more specific. but-
yeah, I'll get you.
And it might be a relationship between OCE and city manager, might be a run up on that side. Because I think, wise, the proposed budgets have already gone in, the city managers are working with them. So the supplemental request might be in reference to the city manager's process.
And I was just, can you repeat one more time, how much was this?
So this project that we are implementing with the avenue is $10,000. It's in the packet that was circulated. We've got your next room. Yeah. So if you go about 2/3 of the way through, you'll get to the vertical pricing outline. Skip the top one. The top one is the basic platform. Ignore this because we do get that 5 minutes into we already are afraid of stuff into the box. It's like still what we call it, but, plug it in. So it's down here, standard platform. Right. So very well organized. Through that, the chair. So now we're gonna have, you should get your hands on the report. So I'm sorry, I will yield now to allow us to keep on time, but that was a pretty big one for us. You have to get to your point.
It's fine, we've got the time. One, just kind of an echo of what everyone else said. I love to have more information than not. And my motto in life that I learned from a professor in college is work smarter, not harder. And I think this gives us an opportunity to do that as a board and as a community, but also as a city. So I'm excited about the prospect of it. For policy committee can also tell you that I'm also very much a stickler for procedure and process. So when Tom first introduced using Portico, again, loved the idea, harkens back to our work plan. Because the work plan was a skeleton of something like this. The idea of having community conversations, the compilation of all that information into presentable data, and then from that data, making a presentation of recommendations or concerns to city council at the end of this year to be June 30th. This established. This changes things a bit. So we went through a lot to get that work plan done and approved twice. And that doesn't mean that it can't be done or amended, but I do want to take a minute, whatever that looks like for us, in thinking about what that strategy is and how using the software might affect it. One of the things that affects the timeline. So between February and June, if this is something that the board votes to adopt using Portico, we have these many months, of time where we don't have specifics in that plan outlined because we've not gotten the fabric of community conversations out. So it sort of raises the question of what are we doing in that meantime? Does not mean we can't devise what that looks like, but it does leave February to do without specific action being taken because we don't have the funds and whatever it is. Yeah.
And I would say in sort of redirecting, perhaps this is an opportunity, because I agree with Carmen in the sense of like checking for consent and what anonymity is like, what are the protections that we can offer for people to foster trust and transparency, like those types of things. There may be value to the idea of community conversations being less. Now we're going into that place that I was so scared about back in December. Less about us as a board moving, but perhaps more as us individuals moving in community meetings and circles of awareness to learn what it is we need to be looking for from Cortico, to learn about how we need the system to work for us in a way that we then create a bridge into FY25 where we can hit the ground running by actually implementing the tools. I feel confident about this because y'all, I'm a professionally trained facilitator and I have research expertise in qualitative methodologies. Like, this is what I do. Yeah. I know, I like the small, basically we're working with focus groups. So those of you that have marketing experience or things like that, that's the research structure. The learning model is based on these small group interactions. And I can already envision what the training is, but we can also enhance it. So we can look at, because we have those training days.
We would have training days, we would have all sorts of other components. And one thing to mention too, that Cortico has said that knowing the fiscal years and how it works, if this is something that the city agrees to and wants to move forward in, and there's a contract signed, and no payment doesn't start until July or August or whenever funds can be released, they're open to starting to do some infrastructure work and getting things in place so that when the things turn on and the new year goes around, there's a little work that's been completed versus starting at ground zero. So there is some openness and they would write that into the contract. That says we acknowledge that we will do the following things in advance of payment and that kind of things. And they're open to be saying that it was clear about.
I think that's great. I don't doubt the integrity of the organization or what the software could do.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we have, very much like what Justin said, we have focus. So we get all this great information and resources and then we're like, okay, we're going to do community conversation. What does that mean?
Right.
What are we doing and how are we looking at it? So I just want to be aware of that, especially like if we have that so much time in between. I don't want it to be take it on and then wait for it to do the work without intention. Yeah.
So if we were to move to go forward with this, could we perhaps do a joint meeting between policy and community outreach to come up with what this looks like in terms of community conversation? And part of that.
It's everybody. Yeah.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
It's everybody. Yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah, but I think that that would need to be specifically
Outside of regular.
Yes. Yeah. The intention here is to get the heavy lifting and pieces in place to get the process moving and then get Nadia on the phone. Once we have a conversation with them and Nadia, I would then share all that information back to the board so they can see where the city is kind of starting to weigh in. But yes, this right now is just to kind of push it. And then once it gets pushed to a point where it's starting to click, that shuts off, procedure needs to come into play. How are we going to roll out the committee? All those things become a giant conversation. We're just doing the lifting now, just doing the work. But it stops there. This is not a single committee conversation. It should be everybody on the board. That's 100%.
So I think I have a question about the work plan and whether or not we would need to push through a revision or approval. But in terms of the fact that this new tool is how like this can, remember when we were talking about the work plan, there was concerns about us like shouldering the load, figuring out how to plan the events and do all of these things, going forward. And that was something that we all had an aversion to in terms of just recognizing like we're all busy people, got a lot of things going on. This takes for me, takes the weight off things because you can work with, if we can actually work with the groups that we represent, like that could be one of our first choices, is like the shared experience of the residents that we have can be the first way, our practice way of hearing about things, because we have that experience ourselves. But as we go through the training, we can actually look and build that strategy out. And basically, I would say declare it as an on-ramp into the community conversation that we have anticipated. I mean, it just changed the timetable, but this is much more effective because we're not reinventing the wheel, right? Because we can do the visualization, like all of this data stuff can happen with tools that exist out there in the world. There's word cloud generators. There's all sorts of ways that we can deal with it. But I think the reality is that the value of knowledge is where it's centralized and how it's held. And that's something that we grapple with and don't have the most beneficial answer to in that way. But this provides a real meaningful opportunity that can then be a democratized tool across all spaces. And what would be unique to us is how we gather the groups together, how we build the process with them, so that we model potentially for other units, other departments, other entities.
And I think a good point about yours too, the part about clouds, you can push this up and we can do this through different applications. You then start running into a landmine field of security issues. Who owns that data at that point? If it's up in that cloud, from, for example, like what happens to the data once it's entered? Do they sell that data? Like, where's it go? Here it's, this is your data. We'll house it for you because this is what it has to be housed. But contracts end or whatever it has to be, the data is returned to you. We destroy it. We provide something that says this data has been removed from the servers and shows IT people, whoever needs to see it, that the data is gone and it's over. And that's it. So it does not live anywhere. They do not sell data. They don't even provide it to MIT. MIT is just a partner because they're really good at this stuff because they're crazy smart. So that's, but they don't touch it. They don't see anything on the other end of the user's.
So I guess my other question, and this might be part of figuring out the process, but I guess I'm thinking in terms of, will there be staffing needs? That has to be considered in terms of your budget, our turnover, all of that. How does that process?
I think I asked that question during, oh, you don't know, I think I asked that question during the meeting, or the meeting after they presented, kind of about where it lives and what that means. So part of it was if, for example, about the city, but, you know, the community engagement grant or give to us, does that mean that we have control over what happens, or how do we manage all of that? And it seemed like it was more of a, this lives with us in how it's done and what's done. I don't know how that looks with access from any other parts of the city. So in terms of kind of the same legwork, kind of what we would be doing with community conversations, I see it as the same thing. The back end would obviously need help, and if it is in conjunction with Office of Community Engagement, I think those things work together. So there's some back end that maybe the staff thing, obviously, maybe part of it would be something that staff would do, because it would be both of ours, like would be an Office of Community Engagement thing that TV also uses and works with. But I think it's taken both. I think there are each commitment for both.
Well, I think, I mean, there has to be a commitment.
Yeah, I'll get it.
I'm not worried about your staff's
Mhm.
or the office commitment. I'm worried about budget and bodies that the council. And I think that this, while it brings down some of the amount of work, there still would need to be somebody on staff who's that their focus, their responsibility. And I need to know that, I mean, y'all are really sitting over there twiddling your thumbs down.
Right.
That's a, you know, I feel like this would actually
Yeah.
some.
I'll get a clear answer on that. I sat at that meeting too, but I did leave at the end, but the way this works, I mean, I don't think it'd take a full-time person to do any back-end stuff on it. But once we get more details about how it works and operates, I'll let you all know.
In that reporting, I know that Beaver talks about how they designated and set that up kind of on the staff side as well. They've only also done 30 total conversations to date. So they've been pacing that and making manageable in that process. And Corey teaches you that you're going to work, they need to walk you through how to do a questionnaire, how to do this other stuff, and it's all about, here's the needs, smaller DX. They're not doing too long, right? This year, they may be doing 20 more, we're capping it in the fifth year to see what that data says. But yes, it's, we have still.
My other question is because this was done, or Portico's done this is the New York Public Health Department, I think it's a larger, probably it's not, Raleigh, or Durham are growing slowly. I see this, if we go into it, even from just a trial.
Yep.
It would grow quickly, and so I would like to hear from a larger group that has done this, not necessarily going down to or 30 or 40 competitions in a year. I just think we're growing too fast, and we can already see from the public comment that the council have a lot of concerns. So I just think that all of that needs to be taken into consideration, even though we're coming from a small place. Those kinds of questions need to be thought about out front before we.
The New York one is a subset of a department. They had 40. We're not talking at scales of hundreds and thousands, 34. All after that. Nobody is like Boston and stuff like that. Like they're all just subsets, smaller subsets. I got a chance to tour the back. Like this second conversation, they recorded, I think the biggest one is, so they're small too. They're sniffing it out, or they've done it for exactly what it is they need to do.
Can I just provide a research context for why that is the way it is? Because your other tools don't disappear. We can still survey, we can still do things that have quantitative statistical significance, perhaps to point us in the direction of the conversation, to geolocate them or to topically address them. So it's not a matter of we're only talking to 40 times 6 people, right? So 240 people and saying that they live entirely. This just adds to the tools and gives us more specific and uniquely situated information, right? Because your perspective as a lifetime native of Raleigh is very different from mine. Someone who was been here a few years ago and rents, et cetera, so on and so forth. And so this approach balances out diversity and actually can help to build the equity that we're looking to build as a part of a portfolio of tools, not as the only thing we use, but as part of the bigger conversation.
I just want to go back to the procedure part for a second. So I think what I'm hearing is we're all excited about this tool and something we'll go look at some money for it. But even if we get the tool, we still have to have the conversation of like, how do we recruit people for the conversations? How do we use the other tools in the portfolio, like surveys? When does this come in? And so if we still need to write that procedure, we were saying a minute ago, like policy committee, we've got a policy committee that writes policy and procedures. But ultimately, we want everybody to be on this, but it probably can't be a part of the regular meeting where we come up with this procedure because that would take up too much time. So do we need, I guess I'm gonna ask the outreach committee, like, what do we need while this is going on? What can we be doing in parallel to support the process part? Do you want to have a joint committee meeting? Do you want to have a special session? What other terms can I use that sound real hard?
How about this? A great question. What I would suggest is, why don't we open up to the next call with Nani and with Corey? Why don't we open it up that anybody and everybody from policy, in fact, if anybody else wants to sit in and get some things back, well, we can do that too. there's no harm, no foul. I mean, we invited half the city's departments to our thing, so we can go ahead and invite ourselves to our own thing too. So I can set it up that if you want to participate, there'll be a date and a time. You can circulate it and say, let us know if you want to show up. You'll get a link for it kind of thing. You can ask your questions, you can listen to what's going on. We'll also record the session for those that can't attend, and then provide the recording afterwards at their disposal. Will allow you to ask those questions like, how does the procedure process roll out? Or what is this? Or what is that? That's the best answer I can give you because that is the next point of contact before the machine continues to roll out the track.
I'm gonna do the improv thing, I learned, like, yes, and. Yes, and imagine that for some reason we find out something about Portico that we don't like.
Yeah.
I think we're all so excited about a tool like this that I imagine that we'll go and try to find another tool. So tool agnostic, not, no matter what tool we end up using, we're still gonna need a procedure that probably doesn't depend on the tool. So can we start talking about what that procedure looks like without considering the tool, like in parallel? And is that something separate? Because I think that would help us a lot to make sure that our procedure isn't too tied up in what the tool is. Because the procedure gets back to our work plan. If we want to bring these community conversations together, whatever our work plan says. And so can we have a parallel conversation that's tool agnostic?
That's exactly, that was my question, because we have to, again, have to move with attention. I think it's great to have a call about the actual tool, but what are we going to do with it and why?
So then I would suggest that the inquiry that sort of centers that is how do we want to bring people together? Right, which is why we can talk, like in the earliest version, certainly on the work committee, the work plan subcommittee, it got concerning because the idea of community conversations, like we immediately went to magnitude. So how many people can we squeeze into a space to get as much data as possible generated that way? So I think it's really a question of perhaps like assessing what our capacity and capability and interest is in assembling people in various configurations. That would, I mean, ultimately, we're sort of talking about what are generally recognized research structures, right? So like an individual one-on-one interview is a way that we can get data. Focus groups, smaller groups that are cut across various qualities and characteristics is another way. Then we have surveys and those kind of types of things. So just thinking about on that more general level meeting, I mean, I suggest the research structure simply because it's a really easy way to landmark sort of a spectrum of basically the number of people you have in the room that are answering the question, kind of what it is.
So it sounds like we need an opportunity for all of us to be together outside of this regular meeting to discuss perhaps methodology behind. Yeah.
And that's why I want to get into some of the trends. So they're gonna give us theirs. Like we'll know theirs. Then, I mean, not that we have to go through the whole training process, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like recognizing that there's gonna be some sort of process that they outline and then we can start implementing. Right.
So part of that on the actual Portico side, and then part of that on the creative work plan for a reason to reach people, how do we adapt that to this side? So that sounds like two, or a really long one, where there's an opportunity to hear from Portico, like their training questions, et cetera, get the presentation for anyone that hasn't seen it or whatever we need to do. And then a separate discussion about everything else we're doing, why, how it affects our work plan, what was in the work plan that we want to make sure we address, the intention behind what we're gonna need for, we're gonna ask people about all of that. And it can't, in my mind, it can't be 2 or 3 committees because it engages everybody in it.
I just want one comment, so you keep it simple. Remember that the board, the turnover from any group to one's no here. So just because you train somebody, they leave. So it has to be focused to stay with staff. So it has history. So we can't look at trying, I heard something last meeting where people felt overwhelmed. about all the committee was doing. And it's maybe the way we're looking at it. So we have to kind of add that in so that it's just not overwhelming, but it's part of staff. It is maintained by the board, however we want to go through it. But keep it simple. That's all.
No, it's simple, and to be honest, the structure there and the structure that we would probably discuss up to. It's already that the staff has the majority, will get the majority of all the training and everything else. We will determine how that works from a board level and what our engagement is, what training is needed there, so that it can be documented in terms of a future other member. That's part of the procedure. So I don't want to cut this conversation short, no, certainly, but I know that I know we've got a short time. I do have one more thing that I have to add, which is this, social media conversation.
Well, done a lot of outside of this room work, operating for code into the process of this board, and I would love a formal motion of some sort that has ingredients from the people that are here that this is the direction I want to go. This has happened in committee and with staff, but not with the board. But I would love to see that somewhere documented.
I would motion that we begin exploratory processes with Portico as a full board.
What's that? Seconded by Jeff, seconded by Sarah. All those in favor, please say aye on the one.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Yeah.
Tell her that she's in favor.
Tell her, congratulations, first one out, gets to be the first one to carry it. That's our out, yeah.
Figure this out.
Yeah, sorry about that, Stacey, I didn't mean to rush that, yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back to your committee and plan for those?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so we'll leave that with, is at least. a motion.
We'll make that on the file for the next meeting. Yeah.
Great job, y'all. Yeah.
Thank you. So then.
Yeah.
Yes, so, one of the things came up, we're outreach committee for our board meetings, so we can make sure that everybody knows we're out here. Is talking to comms, what they could and couldn't do, what comms cannot do for us is use their social network for announcing these meetings. They're just not equipped for it, and I understand it as they used to be the chair of the city of Raleigh, museum, I saw the stadium movie there, I totally get it. We actually ended up being able to negotiate our way out to getting into our own social channels, on our own Facebook, or our own Instagram. We had rules of engagement that we had to do. We can't use a certain logo. We have to be careful about a little bit of wording. We can put a disclaimer in that says, none of the opinions here that do basic, yes, thing that everybody puts in. But we are allowing green lighted to start a Facebook or an Instagram page as well that we would own as a board. We would control its content. Its content would be very specific. It would be to announce these board meetings. It'd be allowed to announce events that we'd be attending, so we're going out with the band. We would do that. From a recruitment perspective, we all individually can reach out and do recruitment. We can go onto Nextdoor and put up posts, so there's now a community engagement board social media account that you can follow. And then we would have to just work out how that, what gets posted or how it gets posted, who posts. That's all pretty rudimentary stuff. We were looking through that in one board meeting at the City of Raleigh Museum. We're far more advanced here than we were there, so it would not take that much time. But it would allow us to start getting out in front of the public and talking about it. And one of the key reasons why I was pushing for this, and then had a call with Dale and Tricia, who else was on there? Alice?
Ellen.
Yes. Yeah, and then, as the problem was, in the article that came out about the announcement of the CACs, there was a section that said that nobody seems to understand. There's kind of a weird section about CV and not really quite understanding what's going on or hearing about it. And so to make that go away, we would take ownership and control of that instead of waiting with the blessing from the city to allow to do this. And then we can move forward. And we've set the rules of engagement of what is allowed to be posted. We'll post. That's it. And it's not a heavy lift. This is once a month events and once a month things. It's not for sharing articles from different websites or stuff like that that may have opinionated content or talks negatively about a city council. It's not what we want to play, but it would just serve as a vehicle for us to be able to continue to push our message out and get to the fact that the city can. And they will continue to provide us with print and other stuff for the future meetings so that we can get them to the spots and locations in advance so people know we're coming. But this would cover the digital aspect of it that we can't cover. So my motion would just be to approve generating the creation of a Facebook and Instagram account. Outreach committee can help just set that up. I have the rules of what we're allowed to do. I told them what you're allowed to do, the logos, so it's very just simplistic. Community.
I just said, I need to get short and for her.
Okay, so my motion would be to establish these properties for the community engagement board and to then allow us to press forward with our announcements.
That's gonna require a second
Facebook
by Leon
and Instagram.
and any discussion.
Oh, sorry.
The one thing, because I know there might be something to do, because obviously we want to sort of address the concern around like that channel getting out of control. If we're talking about monthly meetings and everything, like it could literally just be scheduled. We could approve a template, sign it, like there's multiple ways that we can let it go, push it through. That can be built off of what we've already modeled in terms of what policy. Yeah.
I just wanted to define properties.
Yes, the properties would be based on the motion and so the motion for the properties would be so a motion for social properties for Facebook and Instagram would be created for the community engagement group. Our
I have a question if we're at discussion. So, the community outreach committee be responsible for scheduling.
the same way we're doing this stuff already for just the current side.
Right, I guess I'm thinking whenever folks will follow the PD, I mean, on that, really roll off. That will go to whoever next on committee, but where, does that not need to be a policy somewhere? That, under,
We can add that to the policy committee agenda.
I don't want it to be out.
Makes sense. I understand that. Yeah.
That's somewhere in perpetuity.
Yeah, so there's no gray area. Yeah, sorry, Barb. Yeah.
Would that be policy or amend the bylaws?
That's policy, I think that's policy, because it would be a function of the outreach committee in there.
So the policy will actually send that to,
But draft, first draft, maybe a procedure or draft, whatever the word is for, social media access.
digital media access by.
This motion passed.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question. With us having the ability to manage our own, apart from getting approval of the city, does that also include what it looks like?
Yes, it would be very, so it would just be a
So-
very basic.
So we would have to create the content as well.
The content would, so for
Well,
example,
not create the content.
yeah, so
but-
let's put it this way. So good question. So what would happen is city creates whatever they're going to provide for us that's going to be used to
A template.
print it and stuff like that. We're just going to take that, squeeze it down to the size that it needs to be, which is a very simple process. Out it goes. We don't provide any other flavor or
No,
anything else,
no,
just a
correct.
warm welcome of a
Okay.
template says, we encourage you and we welcome you to join us on this next meeting. And then a link that lets them go to sign up for it, which is on our site and all
Cause I
that.
just wanted to make sure, because it kind of sounded separate, but now does it now?
It will not include any city logo branding. So it can't be anything that's representative of the city or office.
I can't look
So it would be independent, it'd be independent information, but essentially.
Yes, and if you would like, you could create a couple templates and bring it the same way that we just went through this for policy and the procedure that goes to emails and where you review and discuss and approve, and then we just send those things.
I mean, my big thing wasn't like actually what it looked like, because we had this conversation before you had joined the board
Yeah.
about needing to get things approved by the city before we can post anything.
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to wonder whether, especially like with graphics, if we were sending something out, that could be a long process, but if we have templates or something that we're given, then we can just say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, and like just push
As
it
long
out.
as I don't put the tree on it, and as long as I'm gonna follow the exact same color template that's inside of what a flyer looks like or anything else, it's all fair game.
Okay.
So those are the only two branding requirements they have, and both of them are simple, they're quick.
Cool.
I think I got answered, because you said something about whatever they did.
Correct.
Then you down.
Yeah.
That we have, right?
No, sorry, yes, so downsizing would just be dropping it in, taking the content out of it, dropping it in something else. And pushing it out.
And I also know whatever comes is out is always.
Yes.
I
Well, we already, here's the thing, we already have our dates and we have our locations, so I don't necessarily need to.
That's fine, I just don't, I don't want to depend on anything.
That's fair point, yep, that's fair point, yep. Yeah. Sorry.
I feel your pain. No.
Yeah, no, we're trying to take it away from me.
I don't care.
I feel good being over on this side right now.
Comps is doing the best they can.
I was gonna say, that we can always recommend as a board that communications get additional staff and resources.
Well, we don't want it to take away from.
Right, that's right.
True. Any other discussion on this motion? Good. We forgot that we get back, so we don't have to exclude it.
Yes, that's fine.
We can vote it. We have. Like the board to be there.
Like, relating to this motion, I have a question, procedural question. When we're talking about having a protocol meeting with all three committees, does that represent a quorum that we have to make it public? Okay.
And post the agenda and all the things.
Would you put that on, right?
Even though, like, even if we
It is
don't
a
make,
special
it, like, we don't conduct.
If it's a special meeting of any.
If you've got a board, you've got, it's like the city council, we can only a certain number of things.
On the plus side, I'm really looking for it. Oh,
You never know.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna call it. Motion of the board and seconded, we've had our discussion. You want to read the motion one more time? You talked about it.
Yes, so what I got from you, the motion is to approve the creation of social properties, of Facebook and Instagram for the community engagement board with procedure. So that's not, okay.
Thank you for squishing that.
Yeah.
You were very, very good at that. I should bring you into my office.
All those in favor, audibly say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll leave. So that's unanimously approved. Thank you for bringing that forward. I completely agree with it. It's gonna get some things to make this information out of you. Anything else from outreach? Okay, everything else pretty quick. I only have two updates, I believe. One, last meeting we approved, last meeting. Maybe before that, we approved to have the community engagement board email set up so that we had something that was in-house for anything, whether it's documents that we need to make sure are accessible after we are no longer on the board, or the public to have access to us directly rather than through a city managed email address. So that was created. There are these little cards here that if you'd like, you can take it with you, or I can just send you all the email from there. But the email is raleighceb@gmail.com. The policy committee helped, and staff as well helped figure out the best and most succinct way to create that email. community engagement board, or Raleigh community engagement board with too many characters by one letter, otherwise that would have been it. But it's RaleighCEB@gmail.com. So, that's where we send out our public comment emails from. Hopefully that's where things like the tracker can live, so that it's accessible again to everyone who needs to do that in the future. All those things. So that did get done. It is functioning. We shared it with constituents. Please feel free.
You want to send it this electronically?
If I can just send, basically send everybody an email that says, hey, this is this, and if you need to tell somebody, you need it.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that. Okay. And then the second thing on the very last page of this very hefty packet, sent out dates for board training. Ellen spoke to us last meeting about, board and commission training that we never did. And so we selected a couple of dates to attend the training. You can come in person or you can attend virtually. Either one is okay, but we do need to know who will be at which one before we do tonight. Some people have already let me know via email. They're not going to be here. But we'll take a little more time before you leave and, mention one of those. It's about 90 minutes. And we'll be at the Pathway
Yeah,
Center.
Pathway Center.
If you.
And it's hybrid, it'll be virtual as well.
Yeah, if you attend in person, it'll be at the Pathway Center. If not, you can get a link and still be training. So take a look at those in the meantime while we're discussing the, I don't think I have any other old business. I think we've said anything.
I had a couple of things.
Yeah.
Do you prefer an email to let you know, talk to you after, or?
I'd love to have it now if I could, but you, if you need to, you get the benefit because you didn't know about this until like Monday because you weren't aware. So you get the email.
Can I do February 27th?
Yeah.
2/3.
I think I sent one.
No, I'll be the 21st.
29, I'll have to do virtual.
No, I choose. I don't want to wait. Who said you had to?
I think I'll send you first. Yes.
So I have Tom for the 21st, Allison Leon, Dr. Lane for the 27th, Amber and Carmen for the 29th. And Jeff. Which one?
29.
Oh, where's that? And Trey.
You need to know virtual.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send all these to Ellen since she's doing the training to let her know how many people to anticipate, whether you come in or not, just so she knows who signed up for what. And then she will have the link to participate virtually. But I just want her to be able to plan. It doesn't need to be an office, or if nobody was gonna do one of the dates, not to walk off her couch. But once I send that to her, I'll get with her on the link for it, and we can send you an email for your special meeting. Before you leave, let me know, the last page of the packet has the board training days, or you can do it in person or virtually, this is the day that you have.
Guys.
I think that's the only things I had to, yeah,
Yeah, old business, right?
David.
Old business?
Yeah.
Young business? Oh, you done tonight? I've got a couple of things that I've been tracking and I want to get off my plate with old business. Number one, we started early, so now's a good time to see if we eat it or not. But I think we talked about business cards. Remember that? So we need to decide, do we want them or not? If we didn't want them, what happened?
So I talked about this, in the January meeting. I met with Dale and, Ellen to talk about that option. So what we mentioned last meeting was that the better option or the optimal option that we have right now is to do a larger postcard. So it would have, I think, information about CD on one side, and then on the back, you can have a place to write your name, email address, whatever you wanted to. There was something that wasn't quite as feasible about business cards, and this was
It was really to be able to leave them at community centers, and they have the wrap cards for the bigger cards, and since we're visiting the different community centers, we wanted the bigger cards, but
There's something else. I think it was the template design that.
I think it was something with the temple.
The issue.
Yeah.
So that's something that's already been in process. That's up to printing, I guess, with Tom as well to get that information, but.
Yeah.
We did not discuss the purpose and the reason for business cards. So apparently something changed, but I'm not sure we were all aligned with that. So some decision was made that I'm not aware of.
We talked about this at the last meeting, because I have it on my updates since then.
Remember that.
So,
It's other thing. So anyway, that's one thing that's been on my list that maybe I was sweet, but I don't think I was. Maybe I missed something, but I don't remember this, change. That we believe before. It's not the same thing that was recommended, a business card and even a something card. But you need people as we're going down circulating all over the place. Do we want to have uniformity and leaving them something that they can contact us with? And I was wondering, in reading stuff rather than leaving this. It's a little different, you know, so I don't know on that. The second thing was signage. We talked about putting our mission statement on a banner, that when we go around and have our meetings, people, we have a very unique mission statement that we felt at the time would be very good to have when people come in, like, what's the status of that and understand, and we agreed if we did want that or not want that.
number trading, because I don't remember banner. I know we talked about shade frame, which I think has already been ordered so that people know when we're meeting and where, but
I can own that. The banner was a while ago, so I think that fell off when I should have been keeping that on whole business. That was a while ago. We talked about that. And it was when we came up with our mission statement earlier, Jeff and I were like virtual high fiving rather full because of our mission statement. When we came up with it, we talked about getting a retractable banner. And then the metaphor we used was how sometimes you go to restaurants and there's a banner that says Rotary Club is meeting here today. We kind of wanted that to be able to put up in front of community centers or at community listening that he's doing for meeting. And I'm sorry, I think it was, I love that drop.
No doubt it had dealt with our mission statement. That it was so unique that we want people to, as they come to our meetings, to recognize that statement. Not that we were going to have a meeting as additional. And so what did we decide on that? So these are things that I've been tracking in whole business that we don't have a consensus for. Or at least I didn't know there was consensus for them. So I want to see that we're going to bring that decide on that. Yeah, and then, you know.
I don't know if we need a motion for it. I would make a motion to pursue the retractable banner with a mission statement on it. But I don't feel like we need business cards. I don't even use them in my own work.
so let's start with the motion.
So I would make a motion that we look into getting a retractable banner with our mission statement on it. With our main mission statement.
Or the second?
Second, and I guess I ordered up also.
Any discussion on that motion? Yes.
Coming out of our budget,
This would come out of our budget.
and then, yeah, I support, I'm sorry if I.
We would have to go, I think if the motion's approved, we'd have to go to communication. I think the motion at Grace is look into.
It's like 120.
So yeah, it's like not just one of us, but it's not cheap. It lasts very long.
I mean, there's the ones I've done in the past and for shops around here, which city made are the only else is somewhere in the range of 120 to 150. And you just, it really is how much durability do you want, you know, in terms of it. So I'm not opposed to that being money that would come out of our budget and do that as a low cost spend. And well, compact, and you can take it everywhere.
Yeah, but it's not just for me, as the band goes around and we do some community activities.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Y'all still want the apron?
The motion would be for me or for us to say that we want to look into it. And so I can take on communicating with staff. Into that. This would be to clarify a point. It would be in addition to the apron that we want, and in addition to the cards or other things we got. So I can bring the costs at the next meeting and then we can decide what we want to go. But we'll have that information and it will be stuff in.
it's only been a year. One more thing.
Any other discussion?
Okay.
So we need to vote on this motion. So all those in favor, say aye, Audubon. Any opposed? Perfect, so that will go to, I'm gonna put that to the outreach committee, on the neighbors. If you don't mind looking into that to bring back. So I probably should, bring it back.
And the last thing, council, woman, Jones might want to be involved because I asked the question for clarification for committee members assigned under youth, senior, different ethnicity groups. What was the purpose? Are we on actual just assignment to committee, or do we have actual activities response in that area? So in other words, if I'm in charge of the senior, do I do things to make sure that I'm talking to people? Or I'm a representative of seniors going to, you know?
And we talked about this before, as well, because I usually do the point person for three, the demographics between different and individuals. So we talked about this, and the discussion was more pointing, you can be responsible to that group to make sure that that's your specialty and lead your outreach, but that was supposed to make sure that those groups were not neglected, or that they were represented. So youth, people who've only been here for a number of years, people who rent, people who are seniors, it was supposed to show a representation of groups across the board. So we weren't all 25 to 35 from District A. So you have the ability to provide special information to them, but it's not a mandate based on what you were pointing to.
My reason for that, I want to know what the intent of council and staff is doing that. And that's why I asked council what they meant when they did that. The other thing is to me,
Was that not something that came as a directive from OCE rather than the council, or did you ask for any of those?
Well, remember that was before our time. Remember, there were 4 of us on council that weren't there when that happened, so I can't speak to the intent of when it happened. And right now, I think what Stacy said, that there's a representative for each one. I don't necessarily think that the requirement was for you to go, being the senior, to go to all the senior centers and get their meeting. I think it was just so that those perspectives were in.
yeah, I wanted that on verse. Yeah, I wanted that on record because it makes a difference. If I'm a senior representative on the board for senior activities, then I'm gonna have to work like this. But if I'm just assigned as a senior representative to the board, because we've had, someone came in and commented at one of our things that they mentioned about the senior representative and the associate, and and so in their mind, what were they thinking? So I want to be sure we're all clear on what that is as we talk to people, that their expectations are, because I'm the senior representative, I'm looking out for seniors, or I'm doing something special, you know what I mean? When equitably we're doing it for everybody, which is is an important thing to me.
I think that we are doing everything equitably as a board collectively. I don't see that way. I don't see work plans as stated. I don't see, I see opinions made in time in board meetings where, let's not forget to have offline components and stuff like that. So we address those, but I was appointed by District C, but I don't feel like I'm beholden to just District C. I feel like to the board, the overall progress.
Pardon?
Typically, when legislative bodies, they appoint to boards and commissions, there is representation stated specifically so that that group is not left out. It does not mean that that person who's appointed has to seek out those. And so that's done from the federal, the state, the local. So if it's the board of realtors, it might be a realtor who's commercial, realtor who's, so, if we're gonna go by seniors, the 3 of us got that covered. I'm a baby elder, and so I just wanted to make that clear. That, I think you can take that extra work off your plate.
No, I think the reason I wanted it out like that, so that we all hear it, we all agree that that's it. So when we talk to people, if I have questions here, this is what it is, not what I guess, yes, what I thought somebody, that's my reason for wanting to get people on my plate. So. That's good.
I would just offer in like this, when we move into the world of talking about ourselves as representative for certain elements of our experience, we move into the political realm, which will start power brokering, like it shifts the perception of our connections and the ways that we interact with community. So I think for me, that's the line that I really sort of draw upon. It's like, I'm not trying to campaign, and I'm not building my own pathway to city council. I'm really wanting to ensure that voices are heard as best as possible, and my experience matters in that arena. And then what I do, while I'm out talking to people, with everybody, right, and then taking note of the things that I don't know about that are new to me, like, oh, this was novel that I learned from this person. So for me, that's where the dividing line exists.
See how it goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to check. Okay.
We have a little sliver of time, of new business to discuss. I had some people inquire about the correlation, the distinctions, separations, existence of both CACs and the Community Engagement Board. So we had a little bit of time to talk about that. I know we had some questions after the beginning of the meeting, which was great. But it felt like it was at least worth opening some space up. There were additional questions, comments. On the topic, any concerns, clarifications, anything? Jeff?
I have never since day one thought that I was a replacement for CACs. That's never been a confusion of mine.
Yeah. I think, so for me, I think you did an excellent job of explaining how this process will or will not move forward, will move forward, at least on our end. Obviously, there's stuff happening there, but business as usual for us. We keep doing what we do. That's it.
Great. I think we should take this as a win. That means we don't have to hear about, CNCs anymore and bringing them back, and we can kind of like stay in our lane. There's no shade to CHCs, but we can focus on what it is that we're here to do. It's out of our courts from henceforth.
And I just redefine what you just said, those, have.
No, I still know what I said. There's no shade to CHC.
From my understanding, we're talking about a community engagement network
Mhm.
that includes all organizations. CAC is one of those organizations. So the perspective is with equity, they're all included, be considered by the board. And
Yes,
it could come up again in some relation to that.
yeah, but we
It
had,
could, but
yeah.
it won't for quite some
But
time.
we don't know, we don't
No,
know.
but it won't for quite some
And but
time. There's
that
a lot of
being
things you have to think about that.
said, there are also other organizations that
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
definitely assist with that are city of Raleigh entities already. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, we're a city around entity, and to your point, yes, I like having the 40 minutes back. Not having a conversation every 3 minutes, it's just what it was, we have our time, we have a lot of things to work.
Yes.
So,
Well, my hope really is that this idea of clarifying our lanes will actually lead to deeper collaboration, to remove all of the animus that seems to exist in that space. Because I see advantage in terms of the CACs being able to live where they live, because like Council Member Jones pointed out, they're like, as a peace builder, they are organizations and entities that are situated in a way that we are not. As a conglomerate body that's assembled across the city, using these diversity demographics to sort of determine our composition, we were already outside of that space, and it for me has just, I'm glad that we see a reinstatement. I think there's more in terms of conversations for CACs to have with council about what that really means and what the import of that, and I hope that in sort of resolving some of that stuff in that conversation, that we get information that can help clarify our relationship with CACs so that we can move into a cooperative stance rather than kind of walk from back and forward. Because it's never been clear to me what the actual sources has been, because of all of the things that had been presented to us as questions were already things that OCD was moving on. It just was not in a timetable that seemed amenable to whatever was happening in that dynamic. But can't tell city staff, give people access to community center, we would recommend that's what we're willing to face, and we did. that was the thing that was so confusing to me, is that we were moving on things and providing recommendations that were within the establishment and the charge of this board, but nobody was ever satisfied, you know, in terms of public comment. I never heard satisfaction in terms of what we were doing in that arena. But like we said, from the get-go, we're not in setting conversation. We're not that deep in developing conversations. Like those things that seem to be an important part of CAC life were never things, as far as I understood, that were coming over here. So that's where my confusion was. Is trying to figure out how to work that, because I don't know how to leverage in that space.
I don't want to, if you want to extend the meeting or not.
We are at 6:30, so there is a motion to do so to wrap up this discussion and get a quick, give one staff update or so. You don't have a staff update. If you want.
I'll do it next month.
Then we are open to that. I will say, I think it's an important conversation to have, but I will leave it to you to decide or not, because we're at 6:31. Seeing no motion, I will entertain a motion to, yes.
I'm quickly, that we extend the meeting 5 minutes in order to have staff update.
Yes.
I'll second that.
I'll second that for staff update.
All those in favor? That's right, I got myself. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? 5 minutes, and we're going to 6:36.
All right,
Yeah.
it'll take me maybe less than that. Let's see.
Oh, this was important. Why did you say you would do it next time?
Well, because there's no timeline on when it's gonna start, that I know of. So, at the retreat last year, the Community Engagement Board retreats, you all were tasked to, help out with the governance committee. So, January 25th, Taisha and I went to the Transportation and Transit Committee, and they moved to approve the governance committee. I'm not gonna go through this whole presentation, but I just want to go to some important slides where you all will be involved in choosing this committee. And here's your role as a community engagement board to establish an action committee, elevate projects, make recommendations, applications, and forward recommendations to CEB. Not sure what that is. Also, you're going to be able to make funding recommendations for funding allocation, recommendations for funding allocations, provide feedback on funding priorities, eligibility, and criteria guidelines. Here's a little bit more of your role. Assist with community outreach efforts, advocate for equitable distribution of funds among diverse communities, and support the long-term sustainability of funded projects.
Is that for just a general or for specific?
So this will get very specific. It is not specific as of right now. This is also a little bit of background from the Public Project Community Support Fund. Or that fund will be supporting some specific projects around the city. I believe, let me go back to that slide. I think it's like $1.5 million have been allocated for certain projects around the city. But we need action teams to serve on this governance. We need Raleigh residents to serve on the governance action team. And so you all will be tasked with choosing the people that serve on that action team. And I believe, we go to the next slide. So here's the action team membership, and this is the makeup. So there'll be a leader, 3 community representatives, 2 nonprofit representatives, 2 of you all, 2 subject matter experts, and 2 executive leadership members. And don't worry about that. But this is the work group that put this together. It was led by Michael Moore, the city manager's office, and a lot of other, cross-departmental, like, I think parks, housing and neighborhoods, Office of Community Engagement. We participated in this as well. Just gonna back up a little bit. So here are some of the current investments that we're making. Pedestrian, you can read that. Charborough Road, I think we did some outreach on Charborough Road to see what the community wanted. And then there's other programs that need to be developed. So I just wanted to share this with you all because the Transportation Committee did move to go ahead and create this governance action team. But also you all will have a very important role in this, allocating millions of dollars to certain projects. And once we get more information about it, timelines and things like that, I will bring this back to you all with the specifics. Hopefully we will get maybe Michael, I can't promise, get Michael Moore to come in and give a little bit more information about you all's role as well.
I remember correctly that we voted to house that under the equity committee, but I'm sure we can.
Being able to do another two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I sent you this out, Jeff, but here's a little bit of breakdown of some of the current investments.
Do you mind sending that so we can email it out? So
Sure, yeah.
we're at 6:36. So barring any other important updates, Dale,
That's all I had.
I'll entertain a motion made by Sarah with a second by Tom on the board. All those in favor? Any opposition? No.